Badou Jack versus Ryan Rozicki. This will be a defense, believe it or not, of Badou Jack's WBC cruiserweight title, which he's held for what seems like an age, despite being incredibly inactive. He's been given, as so many other WBC champions have over the years, carte blanche to be inactive and maintain his championship status. Who is Ryan Rozicki? Well, he actually fought for the Bridgerweight title several years ago against Oscar Rivas. And that was a really good bruising fight. If you haven't seen it, it is on YouTube, I think. And in that fight, Rozicki was hurt in the first round, towards the end of the first round, by Kaboom. That's the nickname that Oscar Rivas used to go by. He's actually retired now, last I checked, Rivas. Retired with eye issues. And he had eye issues all the way through his career. But yeah, it was a bruising encounter. Rozicki came in something like 20 pounds lighter than Rivas in that fight. So there was a big size difference between them. But Rozicki did well. As I say, apart from getting hurt, he came back and he put a lot of pressure on Oscar Rivas and pushed him close. Some people thought he actually deserved to get the nod, but it went against him. Now, during the fight, I remember the commentators wondering why Oscar Rivas was gassing after like 4 or 5 rounds, maybe 3, 4 rounds. They were saying maybe he's tight at the weight because he's not used to making weight. Obviously, the fight was at Bridgerweight, so there is a limit. I don't know if they'd never seen Oscar Rivas fight before, but Rivas has always had poor stamina. Even at heavyweight, he had poor stamina. So, for example, when he fought Bryant Jennings, he came out, as he often does, aggressive, with a fast start, putting Bryant Jennings back on his heels, but he gassed out by the midway stage, and he allowed Bryant Jennings to come back into the fight and look like he was cruising his way to a points victory. Never mind what the judges say. I think one of the judges did have Bryant Jennings ahead going into the 12th, but I think the other two didn't. But never mind about that. I'm telling you, Bryant Jennings was well in the fight and looked like he was on his way to victory. But somehow, Rivas managed to find the last little bit of fuel left in his gas tank, mounting an assault in the 12th round, which resulted in Bryant Jennings being stopped. Okay, but that fight was real touch and go for Rivas because he ran out of gas. And it's not like this guy throws a ton of punches, yet he'll still run out of gas. Similar situation when he fought Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte doesn't have the most amazing gas tank in the world, but he's not like got terrible stamina either. You know, Dillian Whyte's got maybe like average stamina for a heavyweight. But Oscar Rivas made Dillian Whyte look like Alexander Usyk in there in terms of stamina. Seriously. Rivas, again, started relatively quick against Dillian Whyte, but I remember he got hurt in maybe 2, 3, or 4. Somewhere in the first third of the fight, he got hurt. And again, he ran out of gas very, very quickly against Dillian Whyte and basically threw very few punches after the first, let's say, 4 or 5 rounds. Very few punches. And allowed Dillian Whyte to just outwork him, outbox him, and take a decision. So that's always been Rivas's Achilles heel, poor stamina. So in the Rozicki fight, it wasn't at all surprising to me that after, again, some early success, Oscar Rivas faded, particularly with a guy like Rozicki, who is a very rugged, determined, brave, tough pressure fighter. That's what he is. That's what Badou Jack is up against here. He's not going to be in there with a guy who's going to try to finesse him with skills. He's going to be in there with a guy who's bigger than he is naturally, who's going to come forward, swarm all over him, throw a lot of shots, and he can punch Rozicki. I'm not saying he's the biggest puncher I've ever seen in the cruiserweight division. I wouldn't put him up there with Jayo Pataya or even Myris Breedis in terms of punching power, but he does have some punching power there, and you'll see that by his record. Most of his wins, the vast majority of them, have come by knockout or stoppage. He's 6'2", so an inch taller than Badou Jack according to the official stats, 30 years of age, so he's much younger than Badou Jack. So not only has he got size on his side, he's also got youth. Many people who know of Ryan Rozicki are predicting that he's going to become the new WBC Cruiserweight champion here, and he might. But if Badou Jack is able to finesse Rozicki, because he's the boxer here, Badou Jack can fight. We know that he's a good all-round a pugilist, right? He can fight on the inside, on the outside. He can do a bit of everything. That if he's able to finesse Ryan Rozicki in there and take away his ability to land shots, and he doesn't necessarily need to do that to the extent that the public think that he's won a fight. He only needs to do it to the extent that the judges have plausible deniability, because this fight is in Saudi Arabia. Badou Jack has fought there before. He's a resident of, I think, Dubai or Abu Dhabi. He's got many friends in the Middle East, and I think powerful friends. And we know that he's a Muslim. Shout out to the Muslims. Is it still Ramadan? Shout out to the Muslims doing their fasting and whatever. But in my opinion, because of the fact he's Muslim, he's gotten favorable treatment out there in the Middle East with several fights, okay? One of them being with that guy Rivera who calls himself Popeye. Yeah, Badou Jack got a split decision in that fight. Many people feel like it was a travesty that he was able to retain his WBC cruiserweight title. Rozicki is really going to have to do a number on Badou Jack, I think, here to get the win, because Jack is looked after in that part of the world. So, be an interesting one. Can Rozicki get the stoppage? Again, Badou Jack is as old as dust now, 41 years of age. He might need to get rid of the guy. Now, before I go, those of you who are into Fortean subjects, the weird and wacky, the mysterious, you might want to check out my latest topical podcast on Patreon about the infamous Mothman of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. This was an absolutely bizarre episode in American history, which lasted about a year up until the collapse of the Silver Bridge on the Ohio River that resulted in the tragic loss of life of dozens of people. There was a movie written about the episode called The Mothman Prophecies, based on the book by John Keel of the same name. So again, if you're into weird stuff, check out my latest topical podcast on Patreon about the Mothman of Point Pleasant. I go through many of the first-hand accounts from 1966 to 1967, and I entertain possible explanations. Was it some type of elaborate hoax? Was it some type of social experiment, covert military technology, or something far more bizarre and spooky than that? So make sure you check me out on Patreon. The links are all in the description. Just follow the instructions in this trailer. Are you surrounded by mindless bots in human form who adhere to the norm and blindly conform? Who swallow all the mainstream BS and actually ridicule you for questioning things? Do you wish you had more free-thinking individuals in your life to network and converse with? Well, look no further. We're right here. Come and join the Brotherhood of Reason on Patreon. You'll gain access to my weekly topical content, where we take deep dives on an endless variety of subjects, as well as my vast back catalogue of podcasts, videos, interviews, movie decodings, and my Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You'll also get to talk and network with myself and hundreds of other people in our members chat. You can enjoy all this via the Patreon app or on desktop, and download all my podcasts in high-quality MP3. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time, just like Netflix, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper. Just download the app from the Play Store or the App Store, or simply visit patreon.com on a web browser. Then head on over to my page and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. All the links are in the description box below. And just a quick money-saving tip for Apple users. If you purchase your Patreon subscription on the desktop site or on Android, then you'll avoid the ridiculous 30% fee that Apple charges for purchases made on the iOS app. So if you're on iPhone or iPad, save yourself some money by buying your subscription on the actual Patreon website or on Android, because it's a lot cheaper. Once you've made that initial purchase, you can then use the Patreon app on your iPhone or iPad thereafter to access and enjoy your content as normal.